Hello, and welcome to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. I'm your host, Tori Rarick, PharmD and holistic healer. Each episode features a candid conversation about how connecting with the cannabis plant has enhanced an individual's wellness journey. Here to honor the plant, talk about healing, and have fun. Buckle up for a super psychic and cosmically blessed episode. Dujon shares how one joint led him to write the best paper of his life, despite being taught that weed is for thugs and gangsters. He speaks on how cannabis has shifted the concept of food and encouraged him to tend to himself through localizing his and the soil's biome. Stick around for a conversation with a human design projector who has set out to teach principles of natural farming through the medium of apparel. Let's go to the show. Welcome back to the show, everyone. Today we have on a special guest, Dujon. Dujon believes that regenerative practices can help heal our planet. He wants to invest in community education and teach people how to create self-sustainability through farming. As a child, he grew up on the island of Dominica, where his grandparents were farmers. His grandfather would bring home some of the freshest fruit. That memory has stuck with him since. Cannabis was his gateway into spirituality and meditation. The plant has taken Dujon on a spiritual journey to understand how to tend to the earth. He primarily practices Korean natural farming, which he learned from his mentors and teachers, Kris Reissland, Preston Smith, and Cheryll Mendiola. In 2021, Dujon, with his best friend and business partner, Kris Walborn, launched Cultivating Classics. This is a company created to educate people through clothing, regenerative farming, workshops, and spread the concepts of loving one another by loving our Mother Earth. With the aid of cannabis, he hopes to expand his knowledge of land stewardship and consciousness. Welcome, Dujon.
Hi. Good morning.
Good morning. We're here early, what feels like early, but these are like the freshest conversations. So I'm so excited to get into it with you.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the invite.
Totally. So what I like to do as a little icebreaker is draw a card from my highly inspired oracle deck, highly meaning cannabis inspired. So the card that came up today for our conversation is Be Still. And so I'd love to hear from your perspective. I think this is a good one for you, how cannabis has helped you to be still.
Oh, wow. That actually sent shivers down my body because before we started this Zoom, I was doing Qigong and practicing being still and breathing. And that stumbled into my life through meditation and a connection with cannabis with some friends in my hometown of West Orange, New Jersey. And we would meditate and smoke a lot of cannabis, a lot. And one day my buddy Abaja came up to me and was like, hey, bro, we practice Reiki. And I know it's cool to do work on other people, but I want to do this modality called Qigong. Have you ever heard about it? And I kind of took it into consideration, but at the age of 21, there's so much happening that you tend to let those big things go out the window because, you're looking at like a whole other life in front of you. And now, at the age of 29, going through my Saturn return, I injured my knee while working and at a class this summer. And I ended up taking this winter off. And one day I was smoking and I came to the idea that I should do Qigong to be still and help my knee by breathing.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And that's the potency of Qigong, right? Is like anyone can do it, even if you can't move. Yes. That's the whole thing, correct?
Yeah, because you can, basically sit still and breathe in certain manners that allows energy to be pumped up and down through your body. Or if you're able to just move your arms, you can move your arms in certain manners that allows the energy to just flow through your well-being,
Yes. I love how you said that cannabis is the gateway to spirituality and meditation because, the media tells us otherwise, but truly that's my story too. Cannabis has led me to more mindfulness. So I love that.
For sure. Totally agree with that.
What was your original perception of cannabis? Did you grow up with cannabis and has the perception shifted?
I remember going through the DARE program in middle school and they told us how bad cannabis was. And I just remember having a friend that he would like, dude, I saw these kids and they're like smoking weed, and we're in 8th grade and he's like freaking out about it, you know? And it's like probably one of the bad things not to do. Like, don't smoke cigarettes or don't smoke cannabis and don't drink when you're that young. So we had this perception. And as I grew older, it was like sophomore year, I played lacrosse with probably those same kids that were smoking cannabis in my middle school, and I didn't know them. And we ended up smoking together. I rolled my first joint when I was 16.
Okay.
After school at my house, and I had to type a paper for my honors history class, and I got decent grades in this class. I was, like a CD-ish student when I didn't try, when I tried. Actually, no, when I tried. I wasn't the best student in this class, I'm not going to lie. And I smoked that joint, and I watched Avatar, and I remember just being like, I thought the TV was talking to me, and I had a moment with Aang. And I was like bugging out, and I sat down and started typing this paper, and the words that came out of my fingers, I've never typed a paper so good in my life. And I gave it in to my friends, and they're like, dude, how did you do that? I was like, well, I smoked a joint. And they're like, wow, this is one of the best things you've ever put out. And then since then, my reality and like my idea of cannabis shifted so hard, because I was like, man, they tell you that you smoke weed and you can't do anything.
Right.
It makes you dumb. And I managed to smoke a joint for the first time, had this awakening with the television, and then type an A+ paper the same day.
Incredible. Yeah, I feel like as soon as you said honors class, that was me too. And it's like, these are the people who use cannabis, who consume cannabis. Very smart people. Hello. That's so cool. And I had a trippy moment watching Interstellar. So as soon as you said Avatar, I was like, oh yeah, that was probably a moment, more than a moment. That's awesome. So yeah, I guess what was like the shift for you to feeling like, oh, DARE program saying no, but my mind's telling me yes, like just curiosity?
Yeah, I mean, I hung out with a bunch of stoners after school when I played lacrosse, and they would play lacrosse fairly stoned and do really well. And it looked so fun, So I was like, okay, if my homies are doing it and like they're having a good time, it doesn't seem like it makes people as dumb as, they say it does. If you can catch a ball that's being thrown at you, it's 60 miles an hour.
Still coordinated.
That's still pretty coordinated. So that was one of the things that kind of made it easier. And I think my environment, because the guys I played with, they were definitely very relaxed kids, like very relaxed dudes outside of the court, very low people. And it made me realize that, like, it's not like thugs and gangsters only that smoke weed.
Totally.
It's for everyone.
That's actually so interesting. I recorded with Eddie, the weed trainer, just earlier this week. His episode will drop just before yours. And that's his whole thing, right? Like working out with cannabis. It's a lovely pair. So how does the plant serve you?
The plant serves me. I can go on for days with that one. Wow. Right now, I would say in my farming, in the way that I farm, cannabis has opened up my eyes in ways to heal our planet and also heal the people through tending to the soil. Mm-hmm. And by doing that, it's also shifted my concept on food and the foods that we consume and how to localize your biome based on what you consume and how you grow it. Mm-hmm. So yes, that is, as of right now, that is how cannabis is serving me. It's expanding my knowledge on how to localize my biome, my body.
That's so potent. And was that a really big like discovery and realization 2020, 2021 when just like topics of food sovereignty were coming up?
I would say it started for me in 2019, like around 2019. I was 20. So 2016, I moved to California. I worked at a farm in Humboldt, like northern Humboldt, Petrolia area, and they used the typical NPK, like the salt fertilizers that are used now in conventional farming to feed people. And we were fairly close to the ocean. And I saw how, it wasn't just our farm doing that, but there are farms all over that area farming that way. And I saw how the fertilizer was affecting the algae and creating more algae blooms in the river. Mm. So I did about like 3 years of that. And that was my final discovery like last year. And then I quit. So then I moved into this house in town in Arcata and I grew my first, 15 plants by myself. And there I grew using compost teas. And I got interested in compost teas because I went to a regenerative cannabis conference in 2019, hosted by Joshua Rutherford, I think, one of my buddies. And he pretty much brought all the big heads that were teaching regenerative practices. And Chris Trump was one of the people there, and he definitely opened up my eyes to how to grow food and cannabis at an affordable rate. So being a backyard grower, you're like, can I save money, still grow good cannabis, and make something at the end of, the season when you harvest your plant? And I saw how growing cannabis organically is, dry amendments, compost teas, using my cover crop, putting flowers in the bed. I saw how I was able to create my own heaven on earth, and walking out in the morning and seeing just plants singing, how the whole bed interacted with each other, how the soil interacted with each other, the plants were talking to each other. My neighbors had bees that would come over and sit on the flowers, my cannabis flowers, or the flowers that were underneath my beds, and spend time in the space. And once I started to see it all connected, it clicked in my mind in 2020 when I started working with Kris, that we need these microbes not only to grow the best cannabis to profit off of, but also to cultivate the best food that we can eat for our body. Because that is how nature operates. Nature operates without any assistance, really. And if we can steward the land so that we can just put food in the ground and, feed it nutrients, or things that are fermented on the property, your nutrients that you create on the property, or you localize that, you're bringing in your biome so close to where you're living that your health will go up over, at a very fast rate.
That's
based
incredible.
on that.
I have chills. This is our first farming conversation on the podcast. And it's a little bit ethereal to me because I have not yet cultivated plants. I've only been in a field once. And so the work that you do is really incredible, really holy, I feel.
Thank you.
And you sort of already went into it. My next question is typically, how do you serve the plant? So is there any clarification point? Because obviously you're here to do it in a way that most people aren't, but in a way that's super impactful.
How do I serve the plant? I serve the plant by giving it microbes that are in its environment so that it can express itself in its highest form, in its highest capability, as it would in nature if it was to be a seed thrown out and for it to thrive. Yes, I'm tending to it because it is our cash crop, but with the style of farming that I bring to the table, that we bring to the table as natural farmers, we allow our plants to express themselves in the highest capability. So that is how I feel like I serve the plant. I allow it to express.
I'm just a little blown away. And what you were talking about with the relationship with the microbes is sort of interesting. I'm breastfeeding right now, and breastfeeding itself is so magical with how my body can talk to my baby's body, and how her saliva will, tell my body what to do and what to produce content wise. And so is that kind of what you're saying? That's the same relationship that you're having living so close to your plants and tending to them?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes, the soil tells me what the plants want when the system is alive. So I would say the soil is the mother and the plant would be the baby.
Wow.
So the soil would the plant will tell me what's going on in the soil and what I need to add into that soil body for that plant to live.
That's so dope. I'm loving this. And so for anyone that might not understand regenerative farming, can you sum that up?
I would say bringing it as close to home as possible and creating the least amount of impact on our planet for the things that you are farming. Mm-hmm. So when you are able to recycle your material and not have to go to the stores all the time to buy bottled nutrients, you can create a regenerative system like that in your household by localizing your inputs that you're making to feed your plants. Incredible. And that allows your soil to regenerate. You're not killing your soil by adding fertilizers in there, like salt fertilizers that kill soil.
Cool.
Yes.
You're doing great work. So what's the question that you get asked the most about cannabis? And then what's your answer?
Wow. Why do I do it? And I tell them because this plant has allowed me to express myself. in ways that I would never thought fathomable, or reach places and meet people that I've never thought was possible. It constantly opens my mind and brings awareness to my existing and in the things that I do in my own life. Because if I can tend to a plant in such a manner, I should be able to tend to myself in that way. Rearing the plant in that manner allows me to do that.
So like, is that question coming from like family and friends who aren't in the industry, or just like anyone? Who's most curious?
My mom understands. At first she didn't like it. My family, they know my why. I would say it's mainly like new people. They ask me why I farm the way that I farm, or why I tend to the plant the way I tend to the plant. Like people that I have just run into more than anything.
So tell us a little bit about what you created in 2021.
With Kris? Okay. So it started, I met Kris, I want to say, can I tell you the story?
Yes, please.
Cool. So I met Kris in 2016 when I first moved to California. I was staying at a friend's house, and there was like, I guess, a party with a mutual friend of mine brought us to. And he had this box of pine cones that he would embroider gemstones, and then he would pour epoxy upon them and then lay necklaces, turn them into necklaces. And he opened this box of pine cones, and I didn't really have any money at the time. And I looked at them and I was like, I'm going to get me one of those. I don't know how, I don't know which way, but I'm going to have one. And he gave me his business card, and I kept his business card in my wallet, I want to say for almost 2 years before I hit him up. And one day I was cleaning out my wallet and I found his number. And then I messaged him, and then we got in touch on Instagram. At the time I was making jewelry. So I sent him some crystals. I think it was like, a couple of moonstone cabochons, some quartz, and some amethyst, a few other labradorite pieces. And then he sent me a pine cone in the mail.
Sweet. I love that. This is like a very pineal episode with the bee still and the meditation. I'm loving it.
So Kris sends me this pine cone, and I got my pine cone, right? So we stayed in touch. We were both farming. He was in Southern Humboldt, and I lived in Northern Humboldt, which was like about an hour away. And then I want to say in 2019, I took care of those plants in the backyard. I took a break from growing on large-scale farms. And then I worked at this one spot near where I was living. At the end of the season, I want to say, I think it was December time. And then the owner let me go because we just didn't communicate the same. So I had two friends come over, and they invited me out to Charles I concert. And I didn't really want to go because I was kind of bummed I lost my job. I didn't have that much money, but these girls like insisted that I came with them. And then I ended up buying a ticket. And lo and behold, I'm at this show just minding my business. And guess who comes dancing into me? Kris. And like, he comes to me and he's like, "Are you Ultimate Gems?" Because that's the name of my jewelry business. He's like, "Are you Ultimate Gems?" I'm like, "Who are you? Like, why are you asking me this?" He's like, "Kris, I'm the guy that gave you the pine cone that you're wearing around your neck." And I was like, dude. Yeah, I was like, dude, no way. So from that night, we danced probably till about like 10 when the bass was dropping till like 2 a.m. Wow. Separated. And he was like, "Yo, I want to come over and like hang out with you. I want to show you." He runs this company called Sunstocks. We grow sunflower stalks, which we use in our natural farming practices. And then he'll take some of the sunflowers and turn those into the stalks, cut them, turn those into pendants and lay stones in them. And then, do his thing. So he comes over with all these sun stalks and he's like, "Hey, this is what I've been doing. The pine cone thing kind of fell through, but I have this idea I really want to show to you." So we're talking about pine cones, and I take him to the backyard, and he's like, "Dude, I need to have you at my spot. Like, I want you to come, check it out because you're doing this natural farming thing. I work with these guys," and they talked about it, but they kind of kept it away from me. And I went to his farm probably like 2 months later, a month later, and I wrote out in a journal pretty much everything that the place has prior to knowing I was going to be there.
Wow.
And when I got there, everything that I put in that notebook was there.
That's divine.
Yeah. So we got together 2020. I took maybe 3 courses of natural farming. I did one in Idaho with Kris. Then I did another one in December or January, I think. with my teachers, Jason and Preston. And then I did one more class in Oregon, I think it was March, with Jason, Preston, and Cheryl. So after those 3 classes, I went back to the farm with all this knowledge and started converting the farm to a full-on natural farming environment. And Kris gave me the space to do all of that and teach him what I know. Wow. So we ran the system the first season last year, and the plants, I've never seen plants express themselves like that. Mm-hmm. They did something that I've never seen. I'll leave it that way. Like, you have to see this in person for you to really understand what it looks like or what it is. So later on in the season, I went to the store to go pick up some amendments, and I had a t-shirt on. I think it was like a Neff t-shirt or something. And this girl's like, "What's on your shirt?" And I'm like, "Oh, it just says Neff. Like, why does it matter?" And whatever transaction happened, I bought the stuff, walked out, and I went to the car, and I'm like, "Dude, this girl asked me what's on my shirt. Like, you know how easy it is to catch someone's attention based on, you know, what's on your clothing." Yeah. And he's like, "Yo, I have an idea." And I'm like, "What is it?" He's like, "Why don't we start educating people with natural farming and farming through clothing?" So we came up with an idea to start educating people through clothes with Cultivating Classics. Because you can cultivate anything. You can cultivate any idea. Any idea can become a classic. So that was one of our classic ideas.
That's so dope. Wow. And what a story.
Thank you.
How's it going?
It's going well. I'm having a blast. We just created the LLC a couple of weeks ago. The LLC has been created. Awesome. The bank account should be created soon. We're going to be setting up our website. And throughout the wintertime, we tested an idea, which was to sell sweaters with one of the principles of natural farming, or the principle, one of the home bases of natural farming, which is called your IMOs, or indigenous microorganisms. So we put the letters IMO on a sweater and put it out there, and people loved it.
I'm kind of just like taking it in, Dujon. Like, this is just such a good idea.
Yeah, thank you. Like, I'm grateful that, you know, the universe gave this to us and allowed us to express and cultivate in that way, because that's what the microbes do. Exactly. These microbes mimic what we do as human beings on this planet, because they are helping to build the soil as we build the cities. And like, I would say, you know, the plants are part of the cities, and we're the little microbes running around building up the soil so that we can raise like environments for things to live in.
So with the Cultivating Classics regenerative workshops, is that virtual or is it an in-person thing?
We're working on doing a bit of both, honestly. Like, Kris has brought up to me that he would like to start doing YouTube work. And I'm open to the idea, because I feel like if we aren't able to have a class in person all the time, people would have access to the information. Definitely. And then in Humboldt, since it's such a big farming environment, and, you know, it's a very big ag like area. People love agriculture over there. We want to do in-person classes, and I personally thrive off of in-person classes. Right. Because have you ever heard of something called human design?
I sure have. I'm a projector.
Me too.
Awesome. Of course you are.
So as a projector, one-on-ones are our things. So I would like to do, I'm manifesting and creating the idea of doing in-person workshops, you know, maybe anywhere from 4 to 10 people at a time, either by myself or with Kris, or I have other friends in the neighborhood that are also practitioners. Shout out to Johnny. Shout out to Jess. Those are like 2 of my closest friends that are both, you know, in the natural farming world right now. They just got in, and Johnny's been rocking for a year. Jess just figured it out this year. And I want to bring my friends in so that we can teach people in person, because there's something about, like, with this system, when you are in person with these microbes and interacting with your ferments and smelling and tasting, it adds to it. It gives you that sense. You remember what something tastes like when it goes bad, or it tastes like when it goes good. You see something in person and smell it. You know what that good smell is like because it's like you are remembering that, you know?
I agree. I'm personally very intimidated by farming and even just like having starters in my yard, you know what I mean? So being able to like get in, get the hands dirty, just be with someone, that's so cool.
Yep. And the goal is honestly to create or, you know, study different systems that are simple so that, let's say, you know, we teach a class and not everyone is into natural farming and they just want to learn how to compost or they want to learn how to start a worm bin, to start playing in that environment. These are things that I would like to incorporate into the idea of Cultivating Classics and the regenerative workshops, you know, just teaching people basic things to get started so that it's kind of like, you know, set it and forget it. You check it every couple weeks, every couple days, as opposed to, you know, being interactive. And for those that want to be interactive, there'll be a space for that, you know?
Totally. So you've already mentioned some of your teachers, but what are your favorite resources, like books, podcasts, websites to learn? How did you learn?
It's a mix of all of those, honestly. Yeah, I like workshops. Yeah, I'm an in-person kind of person. Yeah. I like to be there, to feel it, to touch, to understand. And that's how I learned to do everything from wire wrapping, you know. I learned to wire wrap. I watched a couple YouTube videos, and then I did it all by myself for maybe like 2 years. And then I watched a couple of my friends, but I have to touch it to learn.
Are you a 1-3 profile? What's your profile?
I'm a 2-4.
Interesting.
I'm a hermit, opportunist. Cool. My friend that actually just left, I'm in SoCal hanging out with my friend Justine. She's a 1-3 projector.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah, it's so interesting to watch how these profiles play out. Like yesterday we were in the store and she's asking this woman about essential oils and, you know, potentially like bringing her product to the store. And she's investigating the shit out of this lady, excuse me. But she investigated her hard. And I was like, you know, if I didn't know that you were a 1-3 and this is how you have to learn, I would be really weirded out by it. But just watch how she did it. I was fascinated.
Yes.
And then she told the woman, she's like, you know, I have to investigate to learn. And I'm like, oh my God, even the fact that you said that, that's amazing.
Yeah.
And then it allowed me to take a step back and be like, okay, she's just running her program. Completely. There's nothing weird about it. She's just running her program as to how she goes. And me being the hermit, I'm going to sit on top of the hill and make those oils. And if somebody wants it, they'll hit me up for it.
Completely. Whoa.
So seeing how it all works out, it's mind blowing, dude. And then with farming, like Kris invited me to work at the farm, and Kris is a 5-1 generator. He learns through his farm.
This is amazing. I love how this came up this morning. So, okay, let us know, what are your resources? Where can people find you?
Right now, I am primarily on Instagram, and you can find me at cultivating_classics on Instagram.
Anything else you want to leave with the listeners?
Wow, I'm getting like shivers all over my body.
This is a good one. We did it.
This is a good one. Thank you. If you guys, when you guys hear this, I hope that you are having a fantastic day and you are able to be yourself and find happiness and calmness through stillness.
Thank you so much for tuning in to 6 Degrees from Cannabis. If you connected with this episode, please share it with a friend who would benefit from hearing it too. Tap the subscribe button to be notified when the next 6 Degrees episode is released. You can find more information about holistic healing, the Follow Your Heart Oracle deck, and what I do by visiting toryrarick.com. If you message us on Instagram at 6 Degrees from Cannabis, we'll be sure to message you back. Bliss be with you.